Hey everybody, it's Nate and Steph from Adventure and Backpack. Today we are going to be installing the Espar D2 Diesel Heater. Let's get to work.
So we're going to be installing the heater underneath the passenger seat. So the first thing we need to do is remove the passenger seat. Everything that we purchased for this install can be found on our blog post, linked above. So let's go ahead and pull everything out and lay it out so we can see what we're dealing with.
Okay, so like stated, we're going to be installing the Espar D2 heater. The controller that we've got is the Easy Start Select, and then we are also going to be installing the muffler. I know there's a few different options on purchases, and that is basically our setup. And like Stephanie said earlier, find the parts, all of these parts, on the blog that's linked above.
Now that everything's out of the box, we're going to actually lay everything out as if it were installed so that we can see what everything looks like and make sure that we have all of the pieces that we need before we get started.
As there's a lot of pieces in the box, it's best to lay everything out on the ground in a pretty good representation on how it's actually going to be assembled by the time it's installed in the van. To get a pretty detailed picture of how this is going to look, you can be sure to head over to the blog post and download a high-resolution image of all of the different parts. You can zoom in and check it out for yourself.
Okay, so just talking about a few of the components about this heater. The first ones we're going to need is the actual heater body itself, the outflow hood, this grid here, as well as this piping here. Another part that actually comes on the bottom of the heater, it was already on there when we got it, is this gasket. Since we're going to be drilling through the bottom of the floor to the outside, need a way to keep the weather out, but this is also going to make a really good template for all of these particular holes that we're going to have to drill. And so that is just going to get pulled off, and then I'm going to start being able to find out where we can place this. So on this heater, this is actually where the air blows out. So you've got these fins here. Air is going to blow this direction. This is the intake, and then this one is the intake for the combustion air, and then this one is the exhaust, and then this is the fuel line. So that's what we're looking at there. So let's use this template to find out where we want to put it. I've already kind of got it about where I want it and got it marked out, and then we're going to start drilling the holes, and then we'll get it all lined up.
After a test fit of the heater, I took the gasket from the bottom of the heater and used it as a template to drill all of the holes for the bottom of the heater. I pushed the heater down into place. I did seal up the bottom of the heater with some Sikaflex sealant, and looking back at it, it was pretty messy, and I don't know that it was that beneficial, but that one's ultimately up to you. Be sure to paint over any of the spots that you have bare metal to avoid any kind of rust. And hook up all of the hoses underneath, just like we did on the outside of the van. Secure the heater to somewhere nice and stable out of the way of moving parts underneath, and route the exhaust to the outside, the underneath of the van. The fuel line is then wrapped in wire loom that's heat resistant, and then routed up over the top of the exhaust as well as up over the top of the drive shaft.
Okay, so now that we've got the intake hose secured and as well as the exhaust hose secured, we've also got the diesel line that runs from the bottom of the heater. I've got it routed up over the top of the catalytic converter heat shield through wire loom, and that is the white hose. So let's talk about how it connects in with the diesel tank. So this is the pump right here, and the mount that is in a separate bag that is going to connect into this black tubing. So on some Sprinters, and I'm not going to talk about which ones they are, you'll just have to look for yourself on yours, but on our 2007 Dodge Sprinter, we have an auxiliary fuel pickup line that comes off the top of the tank, and how we're going to plumb into that is we take a let's see, this one is a 1/4 inch inside diameter piece of fuel line, and then that is going to slip directly over the outside of this, just like so, and it's going to be clamped down. This other side is going to go to the fuel pickup line that is on top of the tank. So following that around all the way to the pump is going to go into one of the hoses that's supplied with your heater, and that just slips inside, as well as on the big end of the pump. Now the small end of the pump goes on this one. Some of these tubes that come with the kit are a little bit smaller inside diameter versus these are a little bit bigger inside diameter, and so just, you know, if one's not working, be sure you've got the right ones. So that just slips on like that, and then this one's going to go to the end of the white hose. So let's go put all this together.
That hose is just going to go right onto the outside of the fuel tap, and then it is going to be connected right into the pump. Now the pump needs to be angled uphill from the fuel tank to the heater at about 50 to 30 degrees. I actually just eyeballed this. If you would like to bring out a square and get it more exact, that's fine, but I felt that a bit unnecessary, and it ended up working just fine anyway.
So I kind of wanted to divide this install into two different parts, and the first part was basically the installation of the heater itself, with all the intake and the exhaust, as well as the plumbing for the fuel. I wanted to keep that totally separate from the wiring. I mean, maybe you can do it all at one time, but I thought it was a little bit confusing. If you have already started diving into the wiring of the Espar D2 heater, you already know that all of the manuals are pretty not too good, not too user friendly. A lot of them are in German, which for those of us who don't speak German is not that helpful. So I'm going to give a rundown of this. I also have a wiring diagram that I've kind of compiled from 5 or 6 different sources that is going to be available for download on the blog post that is going to be linked in the description below, and you can go get that and wire it up exactly how I have it. Now, that being said, it is this wiring diagram is just for the parts that I have ordered. So the Espar D2, this particular controller, which is linked in the products, this is called the Easy Start Select, as well as the external temperature sensor. So the external temperature sensor, I did want to add that because I wanted to, basically what it does is if you don't have this, then the Espar D2 heater only reads the temperature from the intake of the heater, which if that area gets hot or cold, that area is way up front, whereas our bed is way in the back of the van. I wanted to have this a little closer to the bedroom or in the bedroom area. So we get a little bit more accurate representation of what the temperature is in the van. So that is that. This is the wiring harness that comes with the Espar D2, as well as the Easy Start Select timer. It also comes with a bunch of miscellaneous connectors and all that kind of stuff that we're not going to talk about. Okay, so let's jump right into the wiring. So off of the harness that plugs right into the Espar D2 heater, you've got 3 separate wire bundles that come off of it. You got one that has 2 wires in it. There's a brown and a green red. That goes to the fuel pump. This one that has 4 wires in it, it's got 2 reds, a brown and a white red. That goes to the power supply. And then the last remaining one that has something like 10 different wires in it, that one is the one that goes to the Easy Start Select controller. So I am not showing how to do the altitude sensor, the high altitude kit on this one. It is currently on back order, and I'm not going to get it for a few more weeks, and so we're totally going to skip it for now. We're going to show how to do it with just right directly into the timer, and then we'll be doing another video on how to install the high altitude kit once I get it in. But if you're looking for that right now, it seems like the high altitude kit just matches these 4 colors right here: the blue, white, the red, the brown, and then the yellow. But we'll get into that in another video, which I'll link to up here once it's live. So for the 2 wires, these 2, the brown is the negative, and then the green brown is the positive. That goes to the fuel pump. We'll make that connection. These will be run back to our fuse block in the back of the van. This one's going to a 20 amp fuse. This one's going to a 5 amp fuse. And then this one is going to the negative terminal on the fuse block. For our purposes, the red-white is not used. Now let's talk about this one that has 10 wires in it. I had to refer to my cheat sheet here, but we'll go ahead and go over them. So we have a bundle of 4. Bundle of 4 wires are actually going directly to this Easy Start Select controller. As you'll notice on the Easy Start Select controller, we have a kind of a black gray, a red, a blue white, and a brown. The black gray is not used, and these 4 connect up to, there's the yellow, the brown, the blue, and the red. So those 4 are the ones that will go to the high altitude kit, from the high altitude kit to the controller. We're skipping the high altitude kit for now, so it just goes right directly into this one. The yellow is actually not used, but keep it in the same bundle. Just like that. We're going to fold it over, and then we'll keep it bundled with the red, the blue, white, and the brown. So you have a red, a blue, white, and a brown off the controller, and a red, a blue, white, and a brown off of the harness. Okay, now the temperature sensor also gets wired into this large wiring harness here. Like I said, these 3 are for the controller. And then the next 3 we're going to focus on is a brown white, a gray red, and a gray. Okay, so the brown and the white and the red and the gray, they actually get spliced together. I'm going to be splicing the red gray into the brown white and using the brown white to go forward. So the red gray is going to go into the brown white like that, and then the gray is going to go straight through into this, which is the temperature sensor wiring. And so we have a white and a brown. White goes to gray, and then the brown goes to the brown white. So those are all the connections. Like I said, this wiring diagram is a little easier to just look at rather than listen to me talk about all of this. So go ahead and go download that, and I'm going to start making these connections. Like I said, there are all these little pin connectors and stuff. We're not going to get into actually how to make these connections if you are DIYing this particular project. I figure connections is something that we don't need to talk about, and you probably already know how to make a connection, whether it be these connections or soldering these together. So let's get to wiring.
I know this time lapse is going to be way too fast to actually see what wires are being connected to what and how all the connections are being made, but that's okay. The wiring diagram is going to be the most helpful thing you can have at this point.
Okay, so the parts that I did wire up inside, or I'm sorry, in the garage outside of the van, are the parts for the controller as well as the external temperature sensor. I ended up having to go and get some spade connectors because I totally messed up the connectors that came with the kit. Your mileage may vary. So that being said, pretty much straightforward from here. Got the controller, the blue and white going to the blue and white, the red going to the red, the brown, yep, going to the brown. And then on the external temperature sensor, the brown is going to the brown and white spliced with the white, the gray and red, so gray and red, brown and white to the brown wire, and then the white wire to the gray wire. All the other wires are not used in this particular end of the wiring harness. So all of this stuff is all spade connectors. Whenever I go to connect them up inside of the van, because I'm going to have to run these wires through, they're not all the way connected. They're just mocked up right now to make sure I had them all correct. And then they will be run through some wire loom, and then they will be connected, and then then heat shrink over the top of those. And I think it's time to go out into the van and finish wiring up the other parts, because the other parts don't need any kind of connections out here. They actually need to be connected up in the van. So let's head that way.
I connected the wiring harness right up to the heater and then ran the wires outside, just stretched them out so I could kind of see what I was dealing with. Then I ran the wires for the for the temperature sensor, as well as the thermostat controller, the Easy Start Select controller, up through the trim piece that's behind the front door and across the top of the sliding door, across the top of the cabinets, and down into the bedroom area. I made the connections in the cabinet above the kitchen area with the spade bit connectors and then put heat shrink around those. For the power wire, I took up all of the floor mats in the front area and ran it across underneath in the wire chase underneath the floor. For this particular time lapse, I actually hooked in directly into the starting battery, which is not how I ended up leaving it. The power is actually going back to the house batteries in the back of the van, but I just wanted to see how this was going to work and make sure it was functional before I ran that long run of wire. You're going to have two different power wires, and one of them is going to have a 20 amp fuse and the other one is going to have a 5 amp fuse. The bigger wire gets the bigger fuse, the smaller wire gets the smaller fuse, and the last wire in that bundle is the ground wire.
Okay, since that last time lapse, I've got everything put back together. The weather actually got super nasty, so I had to get in a really big hurry to get everything put back together, but everything was pretty straightforward if you follow along with the with kind of the layout, the diagram in the from the blog post. But let's give everybody a walk around kind of on what we have going on. I put the seat back on, and here is the air outflow. So basically just drilled a hole in that with a hole saw and then snapped the end of the this little rotating cap on it, as well as the hose in the back side. So the wiring, I told everybody that I was going to be wiring in everything on the back side. All the wiring is ran down here. It's ran through the back of the cabinets down to the bottom. It's pretty hard to see back there. So I actually wired in two just inline fuses. You can barely see that right in there, I'm sure. But apparently these kits are supposed to come with a little mini fuse block. Mine did not, but it seems like every other review I saw, they did come with it, so your mileage may vary. If you got it, use it. If not, you could just wire in the inline fuses. So once that is all done, next thing to do is actually to fire it up. So what we're going to do, I got back here by the controller. So all you're going to do is once you apply your power, everything's all powered up, you're just going to press the on button or the OK button, and then let's see how close I can get in there. So you're gonna have to hit the OK button to turn it on, and then it's gonna look about like this. And then press OK again whenever it's on those little heating icon, and then turn it up to whatever you're going to turn it up to. I have mine in Celsius right now. That's how it came from the factory. Apparently you can change it to Fahrenheit, but it hasn't bothered me enough to where I actually want to check it. So what it's going to do once it stops flashing is the pump is going to start clicking, and it'll click probably once every half second or so, and it will do that for about 30 to 45 seconds. It will likely shut off. The fan is going to turn on at some point in time during that time, but it's probably not going to blow any hot air because there's no fuel in the lines. It's going to shut down because it's likely not going to get any fuel to the heater in the first go round, and then it's going to shut down, and then it's going to start up automatically again. You don't have to do anything at the controller. It's just going to do that all automatically. Basically, it's going to go through 2 cycles of trying to start up. So it's going to click, the fan's going to turn on, it's going to try for about 30 seconds or so, it's going to turn off, fan's going to die down, pump's going to stop clicking, it's going to sit there for a second, pump's going to start clicking again, fan's going to fire up, start going again, and then wait for about 30 seconds, and then it might get fuel at that point in time. It did not for me. It shut down again, and so once it shuts down for the second time, it's going to throw an error code up here on the controller. So all you need to do is you just need to disconnect power from the heater. So pull the fuses, let it set for a minute or so, plug them back in, and then go through the same startup process that I showed just a second ago with hitting the OK button and getting all those settings set up like that. So OK button again, and then turning the temperature up. Then it will go through that exact same process. Mine happened, my heater fired up, actually started producing heat on the first first try of the second round. So, but I've seen reports out there of it taking, like, people having to pull fuses and pull power from it about 3 or 4 times before they were actually able to get any diesel sucked up into the heater. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the length of the diesel line, but kind of speculation. So really that's all I have to say about it. So far we're pretty happy with it. We're actually a few days in. We've had it in for a few days. So far so good, but we're not doing a review of it this time around. This was just going to be how to install it. Let's see, I think that is all we're going to talk about. I'm going to be doing a video as soon as the high altitude kit comes in and how to install that. It's still on back order as of the making of this video, but if it's live, you'll see it up in the top corner for that. But I think that's about all for this particular tutorial. So right about now, you're going to be seeing some icons pop up on your screen. One's going to be a subscribe bubble so that you can stay current with all of our van life and adventure updates. Next is going to be a link to our van life playlist and our adventure playlist where you can watch all of our videos. And lastly is going to be a link to our blog where you can check out all of our van life, adventure, and travel tips. So until next time, we'll see you later.